Every morning across America's heartland, thousands of cattle wake up in feedlots stretching from Texas to Nebraska, completely unaware they're about to become one of the most beloved cuts in barbecue history. But before that tender, smoky brisket reaches your plate, it travels through one of the most sophisticated industrial food systems on the planet. The story of American beef brisket begins long before any factory whistles blow. Back in the 1800s, European immigrants brought their tradition of slow-cooking, tough cuts of meat to Texas. German and Czech settlers discovered that the chest muscles of cattle, what we call brisket today, could be transformed from shoe leather into something magical with enough time, heat, and patience. What started as a way to make the cheapest cuts edible eventually became the crown jewel of Texas barbecue. But feeding America's appetite for brisket requires more than backyard smokers. Today, we consume over 2 billion pounds of beef annually, and a significant portion of that comes from the industrial processing facilities that turn live cattle into precisely cut, vacuum-sealed packages ready for distribution nationwide. The journey begins on specialized cattle ranches across the Great Plains. These aren't the romantic cowboy operations you see in movies. Modern cattle production operates like a finely tuned assembly line, divided into 3 critical stages. First, cow-calf operations focus on breeding and raising young cattle. Then, stocker operations take weaned calves and grow them to heavier weights. Finally, finishing operations, or feedlots, bring cattle to their final harvest weight through carefully managed grain-fed diets. These finishing operations are where the magic of marbling begins. Cattle spend their final months consuming high-energy corn and grain mixtures designed to create the intramuscular fat that makes brisket so incredibly tender. The genetics of these animals have been refined over decades, using expected progeny differences, scientific tools that predict how much marbling a calf will develop. It's agricultural engineering at its finest. When cattle arrive at processing facilities, they enter a system governed by some of the strictest food safety regulations in the world. The Federal Meat Inspection Act requires every single animal to pass inspection by food safety and inspection service personnel. These inspectors examine live animals before processing, then conduct thorough examinations of every carcass and organ afterward. No meat can enter commerce without that USDA inspection stamp and establishment number. The moment a carcass is approved, the race against time begins. Industrial chillers rapidly cool the meat to 40 degrees Fahrenheit, creating the perfect environment for the next stage of processing. The entire carcass gets divided into 9 standard wholesale cuts called primals. And this is where our brisket story truly begins. Skilled meat cutters work with surgical precision to remove the brisket primal from the forequarter. The cut starts parallel to the backbone, slices through cartilage connecting the first rib to the sternum, then continues across ribs 2 through 5. The final separation happens along natural seams between muscles, requiring years of experience to execute perfectly. Here's where industrial efficiency meets culinary demand. Most commercial brisket gets processed according to something called item number 120, or beef brisket decal-off, boneless. This standardized specification removes the hard fat layer called the decal, creating a leaner, more uniform product that maximizes yield for large volume buyers. The brisket actually contains 2 distinct muscles separated by a layer of fat. The flat cut is the larger, rectangular, leaner section that's perfect for slicing. The point cut is smaller and irregularly shaped, but contains significantly more marbling and fat, making it ideal for pulled beef applications, or those famous burnt ends that barbecue enthusiasts crave. As meat cutters work through hundreds of briskets daily, advanced conveyor systems transport the cuts through quality control stations. Here, graders assess each piece for marbling levels that determine whether it receives prime, choice, or select grades. This voluntary grading service costs processors money, but it's essential for commanding premium prices in competitive markets. The difference between grades is dramatic. Prime brisket contains abundant marbling throughout the muscle, making it nearly foolproof for smoking. Choice offers moderate marbling and represents the sweet spot for most commercial applications. Select has slight marbling and typically requires more careful cooking to avoid drying out. What's remarkable is how much the demand for high-grade beef has exploded. In just 10 years, prime production nearly doubled, jumping from 4.4% to 9.6% of total graded beef. This surge directly correlates with America's growing obsession with barbecue, where abundant fat is essential for surviving those 12 to 16-hour smoking sessions. Every piece of trim that comes off during fabrication has value too. Nothing gets wasted in modern processing facilities. Bench trim gets channeled into ground beef production or processed into ready-to-eat products like beef sticks and jerky. Even the hard fat gets rendered for various industrial uses. The next critical step transforms fresh meat into a product that can travel thousands of miles and age gracefully. Vacuum packaging, often called cryovac sealing, removes air from around the meat and creates a hermetically sealed environment. This process dramatically extends shelf life while allowing natural enzymes to break down muscle fibers, increasing tenderness over time. Maintaining the cold chain becomes absolutely crucial at this point. Fresh vacuum-packaged brisket can last 35 to 45 days at standard refrigeration temperatures. But here's where science gets interesting. Processing facilities that maintain temperatures between 28 and 32 degrees can extend shelf life to 70 or 80 days, maximizing the aging potential and market reach. For longer preservation, briskets get frozen while still vacuum sealed. Properly frozen whole muscle beef has an indefinite bacterial shelf life and maintains optimal quality for up to 12 months. Each package must include mandatory safety handling instructions, grade if applicable, and the establishment number that traces the product back to its processing facility. The distribution network that moves brisket from factory to table is a marvel of modern logistics. Major wholesale distributors like US Foods acquire pallets and truckloads of fabricated briskets from large processors, then supply restaurants, retailers, and institutional kitchens across the country. Specialty distributors focus on premium cuts, delivering prime packer briskets directly to high-end barbecue restaurants that demand the best raw materials. Understanding who buys all this brisket reveals fascinating trends in American eating habits. Food service operations account for over 60% of brisket sales, with restaurants and bars alone representing 70% of total food service beef purchases. The explosion of barbecue restaurants, from fast casual chains to elite smoking establishments, drives enormous demand for consistent, high-quality product. The retail channel, while smaller, is growing rapidly at over 6% annually. Improved packaging solutions make it easier for home cooks to purchase and prepare brisket, though retail typically stocks the smaller, more manageable flat cuts rather than whole packers. But here's where the story gets really interesting. While industrial processing creates standardized, efficient products, elite pitmasters often reject these specifications entirely. Famous barbecue joints like Franklin Barbecue in Austin demand whole packer briskets that retain maximum fat and connective tissue. They need that protective fat cap and decal for moisture retention during their rigorous, low and slow cooking process. This creates a fascinating market dynamic. The same processing facilities that produce trimmed, standardized cuts for mass distribution also cater to specialty customers who want minimally processed, whole muscle cuts. It's the difference between industrial efficiency and culinary artistry. The most successful barbecue restaurants combine factory-supplied raw materials with proprietary cooking techniques that transcend the initial quality. Grade places like Goldie's in Fort Worth have perfected post-cook management, wrapping finished brisket and holding it for up to 14 hours in precisely controlled low-temperature environments. These techniques turn commodity cuts into world-class final products. Temperature control remains critical throughout the entire supply chain. Processing facilities use sophisticated monitoring systems to ensure products never enter the danger zone, where harmful bacteria multiply rapidly. Automated systems track temperatures from processing through packaging, storage, and shipping. The integration of modern technology extends far beyond temperature monitoring. Robotic systems assist with packaging and palletizing. Advanced inventory management tracks products from individual animals through final delivery. Quality assurance laboratories test for pathogens and verify shelf life claims. What emerges from this industrial symphony is a product that maintains remarkable consistency across millions of pounds of annual production. Whether you buy brisket in Maine or California, the grading system ensures predictable quality standards. The mandatory inspection process guarantees safety. Standardized specifications mean restaurants can plan menus knowing their raw materials will perform consistently. Yet for all this industrial precision, the final transformation still depends on human skill and patience. Those tough collagen fibers that make brisket challenging to cook also make it incredibly rewarding when done right. The same factory-produced cut can become either dried-out disappointment or transcendent barbecue, depending entirely on the technique applied at the end of the supply chain. The American beef brisket industry represents manufacturing excellence, serving culinary tradition from carefully managed genetics in Midwest feedlots to precision cutting and processing facilities. From vacuum packaging lines to refrigerated distribution networks, every step is optimized for quality and efficiency. Yet the final magic happens when skilled pitmasters apply fire, smoke, and time to transform industrial product into edible art. This remarkable system feeds millions of Americans while supporting thousands of restaurants, from neighborhood barbecue joints to internationally renowned destinations. It's a uniquely American story of innovation serving tradition, where industrial capability enables culinary dreams and factory precision makes possible the most deliciously imprecise art of smoking meat low and slow until it reaches absolute perfection.